The 7th wedding anniversary. I sat alone at a table for two in a restaurant meant for lovers, gazing out the window, returning from a month-long business trip. My wife had unexpectedly fallen for a stranger. On our wedding anniversary, she shared the city's brilliant fireworks with that man. She despised my crippled legs, called me insecure and oversensitive, said I couldn't give her the happiness she craved, but she never knew. It was because of her that my legs were broken. Later, she learned the truth, but by then, I no longer loved her. The 7th wedding anniversary. I sat alone at a table for two in the restaurant meant for lovers. Every other table was filled with couples. Across from me, the seat was empty. Several calls had already been disconnected. Yet I stubbornly kept dialing. Can't you be more understanding? I'm swamped with work on this business trip. Do you even know? I'm negotiating a contract with a major client. Stop calling me. You're so annoying. Today, the call was cut off again. Liu Ryan. But today was our 7th wedding anniversary. I had booked the restaurant in advance, prepared a gift. The glances of those around me occasionally flicked in my direction. Flustered, helpless, my heart felt as though it were being flayed, blooded and laid bare. Happy birthday! Don't miss out on the beauty of life. I came across this post while scrolling through her social media. The photo showed her, my wife, alongside a younger man from my university days, a colleague during my business trip. They smiled brightly in the picture. The background was ablaze with vivid fireworks. This junior of mine had joined our lives during a university internship. His name was Zhou Wen. He came from a wealthy family, graduated and immediately became an executive. While I was alone, even crippled, unable to even pass an interview, whether in life or career. Malice and discrimination always seemed to find me. But at least I had her by my side. But now, even she wants to abandon me. Leave me behind? Outside the window, fireworks I had ordered began to bloom. Originally, I had hoped to watch them with her. But fireworks fade in an instant, much like the love she once had for me. How ridiculous! What's a cripple doing here alone without a partner? Indeed, just causing trouble for society. These hushed conversations pricked my ears like needles. A waiter approached, urging me to confirm the timing for serving the meal. The food had already gone cold. I swallowed my grievances along with it. But deep in my heart, I still felt the ache. The malice of strangers seeped in like the cold autumn rain, piercing into my bones. In the past, at moments like these, Liu Ryan would always be by my side, silently offering me her support and strength. She would loudly scold those who mocked me, lifting me from the ground. I once told her, if you stay with me, you'll be ostracized too. She laughed freely and said, then we'll stand against the injustices of the whole world together. The love in my heart began to boil, unrestrained. I didn't dare respond, afraid butterflies might escape from my lips, revealing my fiery joy to everyone. Young love is pure and intense, burning brightly throughout my university years. My phone started vibrating. The vibration pulled me out of my memories and back to reality. The name displayed on the caller ID made my hands tremble, too afraid to answer. So, were the fireworks beautiful? Let go already. She doesn't have you in her heart at all. She only stayed with you because you're crippled, and she pitied you. Zhou Wen's mocking words came through the phone, each syllable piercing my soul. So what if it's your wedding anniversary? She wouldn't even remember it. Oh, by the way, it's my birthday today. Guess where we are? I didn't want to think further, nor could I bear to listen any longer. Their voices felt like demons, shaking my resolve. Staggering, I pushed myself up from the chair, refusing the waiter's assistance, clumsily getting back into my wheelchair. I just wanted to go home, back to the house we shared, to find any proof that she once loved me. Even though Zhou Wen's words had already crushed my heart, leaving it in complete disarray, still, my foolish pride wouldn't let me face it. We were once so deeply in love. She had vowed at our wedding to watch fireworks with me for a lifetime. I had promised her a home, a peaceful life, where we'd live happily together. But now, I want nothing. I ask for nothing. I only wish she could look at me again, at this home we built together. But I don't know when it started. Her business trips became more frequent. This home grew colder and emptier. Gradually, it held only my shadow. What disappeared wasn't just her belongings, but also her love for me. Like a madman, I smashed our wedding photo on the floor. But I could no longer find a single picture of us together. They say the 7-year itch is real. Is this the end of my love with her? Late at night, I drank myself into a stupor. The alcohol numbed my body, but my mind remained alarmingly clear. I had been drowning in the cycles of my thoughts, afraid to tear away the veil of shame over our relationship. Now, I finally found the courage to face reality. Once, Liu Ryan saved me. And now, she has ruthlessly abandoned me. It was foolish of me to keep holding on to hope. Chen, where's breakfast today? My blurry eyes focused on the morning sunlight, and her voice complaining. She happened to return the day after our anniversary. She didn't seem the least bit guilty, only complaining that I hadn't prepared breakfast. I asked her if she even knew that yesterday was our 7th wedding anniversary. She walked past me, without so much as a glance. I told you I'm busy with work. Zhou Wen's project is very important. Can't you stop being so sensitive? Not everyone has the luxury, like you, of sitting at home all day with crippled legs. The closer someone is, the sharper their words cut. Of course, I long to step outside, to run freely, but this disability has confined me to this small world. The woman before me, so cold and indifferent, as if we had never loved. She doesn't know that these legs were broken because of her. During our internship, I became disabled saving her, afraid she would feel guilty. I avoided her for months, lying that I had been in a car accident. Looking back now, I don't regret it. I just feel it was all meaningless. I handed her the dagger myself, and she used it to wound my heart until it bled. The time we spent together grew less and less, yet she showed no remorse. She said that after all this time, she finally realized it was Zhou Wen who had saved her life. My existence had become an obstacle between them. How shameless! I had trusted Zhou Wen so much back then. During my recovery, I even asked him to take care of Liu Ryan, but he stole my identity outright, pretending to be her savior and staying by her side for a long time. He even tried to drive me away from her. From college until now, I hadn't seen Zhou Wen in years, but his social media was frequently updated, showing a life I could no longer have. Gliding through blue skies and white clouds, running freely on green fields, living recklessly. Exactly the kind of life she loved. She rarely complained to me, but in our everyday interactions, she revealed her longing for nature and physical freedom. The only time she ever let it slip, she was drunk, lying on my legs, and whispered softly, "Can't you just use magic to heal yourself, so we can go out and play?" I gently stroked her hair, telling her if I had magic, I'd conjure a flying house, so we could travel the world together. But as time flows on, it washes away love. She began to openly show her disgust toward my disability, even blurting out crippled to pierce my pride. Finally, we were able to sit down together for a meal again. After a long silence, I still wanted an answer to the question burning inside me. On our 7th wedding anniversary, were you with him? There was no need to say his name. I knew she already understood who I meant. Love had turned me into a coward, afraid to face her response. You already know, don't you? She didn't even lift her head, as she casually dropped this thunderbolt of truth. Yes, I knew. Yes, and so did she. She knew I was waiting desperately on the other end. She knew I would see the photos of her with someone else. Yet she chose to ignore it. She didn't care if I saw. She didn't care about me. She didn't even care about the love we'd nurtured over 7 years. 10 years ago, We were still naive college students, standing on stage together at a freshman drama performance. When we stepped off the stage, her sparkling eyes were filled with dreams of the future. On a snowy night before Christmas, we stood together at a stall selling apples. Fireworks lit up the sky not far away. She said, "You love fireworks so much. Let's watch them together for a lifetime." Like a red rose blooming in the snow, her words planted themselves deep in my heart, taking root for a long time. From school uniforms to a wedding dress, we received countless blessings, but also endured many insults. They said that her marrying a disabled man was some kind of strange obsession. Every time she would fight back, listing all my virtues in detail. Even I didn't realize I was worth so much. After marriage, we had our arguments, but we always reconciled. Sometimes it was because of a cake she brought home. Sometimes it was because of a bouquet of roses I ordered. After marriage, we also made many wonderful memories. The sunsets we watched together by the seaside, and the wedding anniversaries we never missed. Time flies so quickly. 7 years slipped by quietly like that. Until one day, she returned from a business trip on a rainy night and told me that Zhou Wen had saved her life. The rain that night was pouring so heavily, I thought staying at home would keep me dry. But that rain seeped into every day of my life that followed. I remember that internship day, the weather was just like this. Continuous rain, but determined to complete our group task. We braved the drizzle to climb the mountain for research. Little did we know, this single poor decision would place us in grave danger. The rain fell harder and harder, and the already treacherous mountain paths turned even muddier and slippery. We supported each other, struggling to keep our balance on the slick, narrow trail. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and lightning struck nearby. To protect Liu Ryan, I huddled with her in a small mountain cave. Soon after, the ground began to tremble. A landslide started not far away. She clung to my hand desperately, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "Do you think we're going to die here?" She forced a weak smile, a smile that looked more like a grimace. It didn't comfort me in the slightest. If you don't want to smile, don't force it. Don't overthink. I'll get you out of here. In the face of life and death, who can truly remain calm and composed? But I had to give her confidence. I couldn't let myself collapse, stealing her nerves. I left her in the cave and rushed into the rain to find help. In such severe weather, all communication tools had long lost their signal. All I could do was shout into the storm, calling for help as I ran through the mountain, falling again and again only to get back up. The wounds on my body multiplied. Rainwater washed over the cuts, bright red blood staining my torn jacket. But I didn't dare stop, afraid that even a moment's delay might put her in danger. I shouted until my voice was hoarse, but still, no rescuers appeared in my line of sight. At that moment, the only thought in my mind was that I had to save her. Till then, I couldn't afford to fall. Another deafening clap of thunder struck a tree not far away. The tree fell with a tremendous crash, drawing the attention of a rescue team. But it also struck my legs mercilessly. Asterisk. The sound of bones shattering. In an instant, pain surged through my entire body, made my vision go black. Before losing consciousness, I grabbed onto the rescue team, specifically the only familiar face among them, my junior. With a weak voice, I begged, "Save Liu Ryan. She's in a cave at point of the research site. The priority is your legs," they said. "Don't let her know," I insisted. Hearing my junior promise, I finally let myself fall into unconsciousness. That junior was Zhou Wen, and it was this accident that deepened my bond with her, while also introducing her to Zhou Wen. The rescue was timely, and she received excellent care. After an examination, the doctor assured us it was nothing serious, just a common cold. Still, the shock required her to rest and recuperate. During her recovery, she called me many times. She anxiously asked about my condition, wondering why I hadn't come to see her. She said she missed me terribly. Hearing this, I looked down at my legs encased in plaster. I felt that everything I had endured was worth it. I simply told her I had gone to another internship site, that my teacher was rushing me. I reassured her not to worry about me. The treatment required me to take many medications. Doctors and nurses came in and out of the ward constantly. They informed me that the knees in both my legs had suffered severe comminuted fractures, with no chance of recovery. I was now a disabled man. The sudden and life-changing blow turned me into a volatile, irritable person. Even a casual glance from a passerby made me wonder if they were mocking me for being disabled. But I never shared any of this with her on the phone. I worked hard to hide my emotions, fabricating stories about my research time and again. On the other end, she laughed happily, sharing her experiences with me. However, Zhou Wen's name began to appear more frequently in her conversations. She told me how scared she was, hiding alone in that cave that day, completely consumed by despair. It was Zhou Wen who brought the rescue team to save her. Her words carried a subtle hint of resentment toward me for seemingly abandoning her. She also said she and Zhou Wen seemed to have great chemistry. Both shared a love for nature and outdoor activities. Zhou Wen is amazing, she said. He knows so many extreme sports. I felt a pang of jealousy. Inside, I was bitterly wondering why she kept talking about another man in front of me. She laughed, telling me not to be so petty. She and Zhou Wen were just like-minded friends. Besides, Zhou Wen had saved her life. My suspicions would only show disrespect toward him. Later, I returned in a wheelchair and told her I'd been in a car accident. I nervously waited for her judgment. Thankfully, she didn't let me down. She ran to me and hugged me tightly, expressing her longing and love for me. We got married in the year before our graduation. Zhou Wen attended the wedding as well. He even offered his blessings to us. From graduation to starting our careers, we faced the hardships of life together, endured the bitter winds of society, and walked hand in hand through 7 years of marriage. But eventually, cracks began to form in her heart. I remained the man who abandoned her in the dangerous, storm-drenched forest, while Zhou Wen was her savior, the one who rescued her from peril. The legs I lost saving her had now become her reason to criticize me. She transferred all the credit that should have been mine onto Zhou Wen, and Zhou Wen made no effort to clarify, graciously accepting all her gratitude. The pain in my legs had become more prominent over time. Previously, an orthopedic hospital in Germany had contacted me, saying they could restore my legs with cutting-edge artificial bone technology. The cost, however, was my entire savings. That savings was meant to secure our future together, a foundation for our marriage. I had even planned to buy a house in the city center for our future children. But now, her attitude left me cold, making me question whether this marriage was worth preserving. Perhaps I should leave, give her and Zhou Wen the space to be together, and at the same time, get proper treatment for my legs. It would be a win-win, wouldn't it? But before leaving, I wanted her to know the truth. To see her guilt-stricken face might make me feel just a little better. On the way to pick up my visa, I ran into Zhou Wen. He looked down at me condescendingly, his gaze full of disdain, crossing his arms, crippled full. Why are you even out here embarrassing yourself? I heard from Liu Ryan that your relationship isn't going well. It's really your own fault. Why does a disabled man like you insist on clinging to someone normal? It's just because Liu Ryan is kind. Take the hint and agree to a divorce. Save everyone from the awkward drama. I looked up at him, a mocking smirk curling on my lips. So she's not willing to divorce me for you, huh? Looks like you, the third wheel, aren't as appealing to her as you think. His face instantly darkened, and his fists clenched tightly. I pushed my wheelchair to try to pass by him, but he grabbed hold of it forcefully. Through gritted teeth, He spat. I'm her savior now. You, a crippled fool, better know your place. I calmly pried his hand off, casually threatening him. Oh, what if I told her that I broke my leg saving her? His smirk froze, and a flicker of guilt flashed in his eyes. He stumbled back a few steps, revealing his fragile psyche. How could Liu Ryan fall for someone like him? I maneuvered my wheelchair, intending to move forward again. But then I saw a familiar figure rushing toward us. What are you doing here? What are you up to? She fired two sharp questions at me, grabbing Zhou Wen's arm and inspecting him carefully. What could a cripple like me possibly do? Lowering my gaze in dejection, I forced a bitter smile, but she wouldn't let it go. Standing protectively in front of Zhou Wen, glaring at me suspiciously. Don't think you can use your disability as an excuse to make everyone cater to you. It's one thing to throw tantrums usually, but now you want to smear someone else's name? Chen, your mind is truly twisted. I stared at her in disbelief, seeing only Zhou Wen reflected in her eyes. No trace of me at all. So, who are you choosing, me or Zhou Wen? The moment I asked this, I already knew I had lost. In a relationship, the one who lowers their head first loses completely. She continued, as always, to blame me for causing unnecessary trouble, for wasting her time. Zhou Wen is my best friend, she said. My life belongs to him. If even her life belongs to him, what is left for me? A weekly, obligatory visit home? Or her repeated cruel words about my disability? Let's get a divorce. The moment those words escaped my lips, I regretted them. The love we once shared wasn't fake. Maybe if I tried a little harder, gave a little more, we could go back to how things were. Fine, as you wish. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. She turned and took Zhou Wen's hand, walking away, calm and unperturbed, as if she had been waiting for me to say those words all along. Her casual tone was like a bucket of cold water, freezing my heart to its core. On such an ordinary day, we were putting an end to the once passionate love we had shared. The phone rang again. It was my attending doctor. I pressed the answer button. Mr. Chen, I urge you to reconsider Germany's latest treatment option. Your legs can't wait any longer. If you miss the treatment window, you'll lose any chance of ever standing again. There are only a few spots left for this treatment cycle. I sincerely hope you'll think about yourself this time. In the past, I would have hung up before he could finish. This time, I listened quietly until he was done. I agreed. Maybe it was time to start over somewhere else. From the moment my legs were disabled, I should have known not to harbor unrealistic hopes for the future. Those beautiful fantasies were as fragile as bubbles, unable to withstand the harshness of reality. How easily do hearts change with time? Liu Ryan. It seems I'm no longer as obsessed as I once was. I no longer dream of future anniversaries, of traveling to some scenic place to watch fireworks. I no longer imagine planning for children who only existed in my illusions. People shouldn't aspire to things they don't deserve. I didn't understand that before, and that's why I was hurt so deeply. In a daze, I felt as though I had returned to that day. That stormy day when I didn't choose to leave you alone. Instead, I stayed with you in the cave. But the rescue team never came, and we died there together. Or perhaps, if the angle of that falling tree had been just slightly different, it could have ended my life at that moment. Then, she and I wouldn't have to endure this painful entanglement any longer. When Liu Ryan decided to marry me, her parents were strongly opposed. They looked down on me for being disabled, believing I couldn't give her a good life. I gave everything I had, almost carving out my heart to prove myself to them. She stood firmly by my side throughout it all, insisting on marrying me in an era where public scorn could drown a person. She never once voiced dissatisfaction about my legs, but in my heart, I knew being with me was always a compromise for her. If we had never met, she wouldn't have been tied down by me, and I wouldn't have risked my life in that storm to save her, ending up crippled. I could have continued pursuing my passion for geological fieldwork, focusing on academic research. She could have, like Zhou Wen, traveled the world, challenging every extreme sport she loved. The storm bound us together, trapping us in a relationship where we tormented each other. The day we had agreed to divorce, it rained heavily again. The downpour blurred the entire world. The pain in my legs grew sharper, making it impossible for me to get out of bed. After lying there for what felt like forever, I reached into the drawer of my bedside table for the painkillers I needed. I sent her a message. "Not convenient today. Let's reschedule." The next second, a voice message came from her side. I opened it, and all I heard was a series of sharp questions. "What's so inconvenient for you? Have you stayed inside so long you can't even step out the door anymore? You were the one who suggested this. Or were you just playing with me from the start? This marriage makes me sick every second it lasts. Can't we at least end this with some dignity? Liu Ryan." Your words really know how to cut, don't they? Each one slicing my heart, leaving it bleeding. I booked a ride through an app, and with the driver's help, I finally made it to the Civil Affairs Bureau. But of course, I was soaked by the rain. As soon as I entered, she greeted me with more bitter words. "Stop thinking you can rely on being disabled to make everyone accommodate you. I've had enough of this for years." I didn't want to argue with her anymore. Every retort would only further deny the love we once shared. "Fine. Congratulations on finally being free to leave." The staff worked swiftly, and soon the paperwork was done. She and Zhou Wen walked away together, sharing an umbrella as they headed toward a car not far away. I could only watch their figures fade into the distance, lacking even the ability to follow. The rain was relentless. It seems every defining moment of my life has been tied to rain. In the past, when the rain soaked my hair, she would fuss over me, asking if I'd catch a cold. But today, she didn't even notice how hard it was for me to go out in the rain with a wheelchair. Nor did she notice that the downpour had completely soaked me. When you love someone deeply, you care for them endlessly. When you love someone, you'd even remember how many glasses of water they drank in a day. But when someone stops loving you, even if you carve out your heart, they won't see it. Our roles now seemed reversed. Was she watching my back as I left that day, feeling the same pain? Being abandoned hurts so much. It feels like the rain has washed a hole into my chest, leaving it hollow and empty. I pushed my wheelchair into the rain. Within seconds, the torrential rain had soaked me to the bone. The wind made everything colder. Even my bones felt the chill and pain. The painkillers I had taken earlier were no longer effective. I had to endure it raw. But so what? I had no umbrella, and no one was going to hold one for me. Let it go, everything was already broken. Today wasn't the first time it rained so heavily. But suddenly, through the rain, a figure rushed toward me. Why was she coming back? She tossed an umbrella onto my lap. Her tone was curt and impatient. "Why didn't you tell me you didn't have an umbrella?" I found it laughable. She was the one who insisted I come out in this weather. So why now, of all times, pretend to care? What's the point? What difference does it make? So what? The rain's this heavy, yet you still insisted I come out, didn't you? Ever since I became disabled, going out or doing anything has always been inconvenient, especially in bad weather. But she used to notice these things. Today, though, she only cared about holding an umbrella for someone else. Seeing me clumsily holding the umbrella in one hand and maneuvering the wheelchair with the other, soaking wet, she spoke with irritation. "Stop acting pitiful. I'll push you, it's not a big deal." There was a time when pushing me outside was just a normal part of her day. But now, to her, it's me playing the victim. It doesn't matter anymore. After all, this is the last time. My calm and indifferent words seemed to provoke her. "What do you mean it doesn't matter anymore? Explain yourself." She grabbed the wheelchair, forcing me to face her head on. "What could it mean?" I replied. "If two people no longer love each other, There's no point in dragging this out. I turned my gaze to the side, avoiding her eyes. I didn't want to feel the coldness in them again. You don't love me anymore? How could you not love me anymore? She forcibly turned my wheelchair to face her, determined to get an explanation. Love, when subjected to countless blows, will eventually fade. Aren't you deeply in love with Zhou Wen anyway? If you've already stopped loving me, then why can't I let myself remove you from my heart? She allowed herself to forget the important anniversaries between us. She allowed herself to come home only once a week. She allowed herself to spend nights by another man's side. Did she never think that the things she did would also erase the love between us? She turned her head away, guilt written all over her face, without even a hint of wanting to defend herself. Seeing her reaction, my heart sank further into lifelessness. Tears rolled down uncontrollably, dripping onto my useless legs. You always said you loved me, yet everything you did only hurt me. Time and time again, you explained that Zhou Wen was just a friend, but you divorced me because of him. The vows you made at our wedding are now like dust on the pavement, washed away completely by the rain. Looking at her now, unable to utter a word in defense, I felt no joy in this hollow victory. In a failed relationship, both parties are losers. I should have seen it sooner. When the accident happened during our internship, I should never have asked him to take care of you. Then the two of you would never have met, and our relationship wouldn't have ended up like this. That sentence seemed to touch a nerve. She angrily lifted her head and glared at me. If it weren't for him, I would have died back then. It was you who abandoned me first. It was you, Chen. I'll never forget how, at my most helpless, at my most desperate moment, you chose to leave without hesitation. She still had no idea what really happened. Hearing her staunchly defend Zhou Wen, a bitter emotion surged in my heart. In her mind, what kind of person am I, really? Am I just the coward who abandoned her in danger? Or the obstacle preventing her from reaching a brighter future? I couldn't help but want to expose everything, to shatter her illusions, to make her feel guilt. The biggest victim of that accident wasn't you. It was me. I risked my life looking for a rescue team to save you. The tree fell, crushing my legs. It was the sound of that tree falling that drew the rescue team over. That's why they were able to find you in time. Her expression froze. She stood motionless, her eyes full of disbelief. She couldn't accept what she was hearing. It completely contradicted the story she had believed for years. I let out a bitter laugh. Pointing to my legs, I said, "Liu Ryan, do you know I almost died there? Being crippled is the best outcome I could have hoped for. I was in the ICU for 3 whole days. I nearly became someone you would never see again." She choked on her words, stammering in panic. "I didn't know. I thought you had left for a business trip. And what could I have said? Should I have told you that I nearly lost my life saving you? Or should I have used it to guilt trip you into staying with me for the rest of my life? I never wanted our marriage to be built on guilt." She crouched down beside me, looking up with tear-filled eyes. "It's not like that. Please tell me it's not. Of course, I love you. I only got closer to Zhou Wen because I thought he was the one who saved my life. I really didn't know you became disabled saving me. Now that I know, please give me a chance. Do you want me to become like Zhou Wen, repaying kindness with love?" Leaving her with that final question, I got into the car I had booked earlier. I refused her offer to come with me. I only ever wanted love to be pure, free from any ulterior motives or guilt. But it seems even that hope was exploited. Perhaps she never intended for gratitude to turn into love. But time spent with someone changes things visibly. Her visits home became less frequent, just like her love for me. I should have chosen to let go earlier, so I wouldn't be left with nothing now. I packed my things, ready to leave for treatment. Looking at the cold and empty house, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of reluctance. Every corner of this house holds memories of the life we once shared. She opened the door, noticing the suitcase beside me. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Germany." I didn't plan on telling her it was for treatment. There was no need. I'd rather she live with the guilt. This house isn't very big. I bought it with the first bit of money I earned after graduation. At the time, we carefully budgeted for every household item. Living in a wheelchair, things were never easy for me. That's why I worked tirelessly, saving up to buy a new house, hoping to surprise her with it. But now that our marriage has ended, there's no point in moving to a new place. It's better to use that money for my leg treatment. After the treatment, there's a high chance I'll regain the ability to walk. By then, I can start a new life for myself. Her leaving taught me an important lesson. In a loveless relationship, entanglement leads nowhere. We were like two kites tethered to each other, unable to fly high or far, stuck in place. But now I've let go. Even though she hasn't yet moved on, I'll go too. "I'll take care of you," she blurted out impulsively. Promises like that, spoken without thought, mean nothing. She never took care of me before, not even keeping the vows she made on our wedding day. Why would it be any different now? Lies repeated often don't become truths. I'm no longer the naive fool who would throw himself into the flames for love. Every word she says feels hollow to me now. I don't believe her. With just that one statement, I turned to get into the driver's car, not even glancing back. But she grabbed my suitcase, holding onto it desperately, refusing to let me go. Her hoarse voice pleaded, "Please don't go." She fell to the ground, only to get up again, crying with a sharp, anguished wail, as if she were the one being wronged. "We're already divorced. What's the point of pretending to be so deeply in love now?" I shut the car door forcefully. The driver glanced back and said, "That woman chasing us fell down. She looks like she's hurt pretty badly, seems pitiful." "So what?" I replied. "This isn't some TV drama. There aren't endless chances for cliché storylines to replay themselves. She had plenty of time to prove her love for me. She had countless opportunities to continue nurturing this relationship. What's the point of all this now?" Her public display of pain and vulnerability only makes it seem like I'm the one at fault here. Does she really think that a few insignificant tears and lies that scatter like leaves in the wind can salvage this relationship that's already riddled with scars? Months later, after undergoing treatment in Germany, I finally entered the recovery phase and was able to leave the hospital in a wheelchair. What I didn't expect was to see her waiting outside the hospital. She was wearing a white wedding dress, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, walking toward me in front of a crowd. Cheers erupted from the onlookers. In the distance, vibrant fireworks lit up the sky. "I prepare your favorite fireworks for you," she said. "Can we start over again?" Her bright, sparkling eyes looked at me, her smile radiant and beautiful, just like on our wedding day years ago. But the truth is, things have changed. Ever since I saw the photo of her watching fireworks with someone else, I couldn't bring myself to love them anymore. What made her think such a cheap, insincere gesture, a shallow, contrived ceremony could ever make me turn back? Seeing the sky full of fireworks and her smiling face now, all I felt was disgust. Moreover, I despised being forced into someone else's staged spotlight. I ignored her performance, wheeling myself past her without a glance. But I didn't expect that from that moment on, she would start clinging to me. She appeared at the places I loved the most, constantly engineering awkward coincidences. She especially enjoyed putting on a show in public, pretending to be my loving partner. Her persistence disrupted my plans for a new life. So I told her I was dying. It was a meticulously crafted plan. I began by using the cruelest words and the coldest attitude to drive her away temporarily. Then I conspired with my attending physician to create the illusion of my death. sending a fake urn and falsified medical records to the apartment I had rented. During this time, I could focus on my rehabilitation in the hospital. When she saw the urn, she refused to believe it. How could a perfectly healthy person die so suddenly? But the medical records beside it confirmed everything. The cause of death was complications from post-surgical infection. I stood not far away, watching her through the railing as she held the urn, sobbing uncontrollably. The overwhelming grief consumed her. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the ground. She cried so hard that her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Her shaking fingers couldn't even hold the papers steadily. Her sobs grew louder and louder, until her voice was completely hoarse, as if she were accusing the world of something. The neighbors, disturbed by the noise, shouted at her to leave. She wandered aimlessly down the street, clutching the urn, occasionally choking on her own sobs. A light rain began to fall, soaking her hair. She took off her coat and draped it over the urn, leaving herself exposed to the rain. In a small pavilion, she sat holding the urn, crying and repeatedly muttering apologies. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I know I was wrong. Please come back, please, just come back. It was all my fault." Her tears fell in heavy drops onto the ground, her eyes filled with guilt and regret. But the dead cannot return. What difference could her remorse make now? After she boarded the plane to return home, I was finally able to start my new life. I no longer had to be trapped in a tangled, painful relationship. I resumed my passion. Returning to academic research in geology, I traveled the world collecting samples, using my eyes to capture the beauty of each unique landscape, using my legs to measure every inch of land. With my heart, I connected with the earth, learning its depth and tolerance. With my soul, I embraced the majesty of forests and mountains, understanding the value and resilience of life. My life was just beginning. There were endless challenges and wonders waiting for me in the future. I no longer had to confine myself to a small wheelchair. The world, here I come.